What happens when love crosses the line into betrayal and ends in tragedy? This is the story of a family that seemed perfect on the outside, an ideal marriage, 2 wonderful kids, and a beautiful home. But beneath the surface were secrets that no one could have imagined. A forbidden affair sparked a chain of events that spiraled out of control, leading to lies, heartbreak, and an unthinkable crime. Stay with us as we uncover how one decision unraveled everything and left lives shattered. Forever Marissa Thompson seemed to have it all. She lived in a beautiful suburban neighborhood with her husband David and their 2 children, Emily and Jacob. Their home looked like something out of a fairy tale, complete with a white picket fence, a perfectly trimmed lawn, and big windows that seemed to invite the world in to admire their happy lives. David was a successful financial analyst, calm and reliable, while Marissa was the ever-dedicated wife and mother. She attended every school event, organized bake sales, and was the friendly face every neighbor trusted. To outsiders, their life looked flawless. But perfection often hides what's really going on. Behind those spotless windows and charming smiles, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. The love Marissa and David once shared had grown cold over the years. What had once been a passionate and exciting marriage had turned into a routine, predictable and distant. David worked long hours, always busy with meetings and late-night emails. On weekends, instead of spending time with his family, he'd often retreat to his office, leaving Marissa to manage everything else. Marissa, on the other hand, was exhausted. Her days were filled with cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the kids. There was no time for herself, and no one seemed to notice how much she was struggling. She felt like a ghost in her own home there, but unseen. Even when David was home, it didn't feel like he was really there. Their conversations were short and shallow, mostly about schedules or the kids. The laughter and warmth that once filled their home had been replaced with quiet evenings spent apart, each lost in their own world. Marissa never expected her life to take a dramatic turn. But then David's younger brother Alex came back to town, and with him everything changed. Alex Thompson was the kind of man who always stood out in a room. Unlike his older brother David, who was steady and dependable, Alex was unpredictable and full of charm. He had a reputation for being a bit of a rebel, always chasing new adventures, but rarely sticking with anything for long. After a messy divorce and a string of bad decisions, Alex decided it was time to start over. Coming back to his hometown seemed like the right place to begin. When Alex arrived at the Thompson home, he brought an energy that changed everything. His easy smile and quick humor made everyone feel at ease. The kids couldn't get enough of his playful jokes, and even David seemed lighter when Alex was around. But it was Marissa who felt the shift the most. David, always consumed by his work, barely had time for conversation at home. Alex was the opposite. He noticed the little things about Marissa, her new haircut, the effort she put into making dinner, the way she carried the weight of the household. His compliments, while casual, felt genuine. His stories of spontaneous road trips and big dreams filled the quiet gaps in Marissa's structured life. For the first time in years, she felt seen. At first, it was just friendly. Marissa enjoyed his jokes, his stories, and the way he brought the family together. But slowly, something else began to build. Their conversations grew longer, their glances lingered, and a quiet spark started to flicker. Marissa found herself looking forward to moments with Alex in a way she couldn't ignore. That spark turned into something more one evening after a family barbecue. The kids were playing outside, their laughter echoing in the backyard, and David was cleaning up the grill. Marissa stayed in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher when Alex walked in. Their conversation started like any other light, easy, filled with laughter. But as they stood there, the air between them shifted. The joking stopped, and they both fell silent. Marissa felt her heart race as Alex's eyes met hers. Without thinking, Marissa leaned in, and Alex didn't pull away. Their kiss was electric, full of passion and tension. It was a moment neither of them planned but couldn't resist. When they pulled back, the reality of what had just happened hit them both. Marissa's thoughts raced. She knew it was wrong, but it was also thrilling in a way she hadn't felt in years. Alex, too, looked conflicted, but his soft smile told her he wasn't about to regret it. That kiss changed everything. It was the start of a secret they both knew would be impossible to keep. What had begun as harmless conversations was now something dangerous, a fire that couldn't be extinguished. That kiss in the kitchen marked the start of something Marissa and Alex couldn't resist. They tried to stay away from each other, but the pull was too strong. Soon they were stealing every opportunity to be together. What started with fleeting glances and subtle touches turned into secret meetings and forbidden nights. They met in secluded parks under the cover of darkness, exchanged whispers in empty parking lots, and booked cheap motel rooms far away from prying eyes. For Marissa, being with Alex was like rediscovering a part of herself she thought was lost forever. He made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. Every stolen moment felt like a burst of freedom from her routine life. For Alex, the affair was more than just passion. It was his way of reclaiming a sense of power. Living in David's shadow had always left Alex feeling second best, and being with Marissa felt like a way to finally have something over his older brother. It was thrilling, dangerous, and twisted all at once. In the beginning, Marissa was consumed by guilt. She hated lying to David and sneaking around, but the excitement of her new double life drowned out her shame. Over time, the guilt faded, replaced by the rush of getting away with it. Marissa became adept at lying, spinning stories about meeting friends or running errands. She ignored the voice in her head, warning her of the consequences, convincing herself that what David didn't know couldn't hurt him. But not everyone was fooled. Karen, Marissa's best friend, started noticing subtle changes in her behavior. Marissa, once so present and attentive, now seemed distracted and distant. She avoided deep conversations and constantly checked her phone, smiling at messages she wouldn't explain. Karen tried to ignore her instincts, but the growing distance between them made her suspicious. Something was off, and Karen was determined to figure out what. Meanwhile, David wasn't oblivious either. At first, he chalked up Marissa's shifts in mood to stress or exhaustion. But as time went on, her secrecy became harder to ignore. She guarded her phone, avoided eye contact during conversations, and grew more impatient with him. The warmth they once shared felt replaced by an unspoken tension. David began to question whether he was imagining things, but the nagging thought that Marissa might be hiding something grew stronger with each passing day. While Marissa and Alex were lost, in their bubble of passion and secrecy, the cracks in their carefully constructed lies were beginning to show. What they didn't realize was that their actions weren't just affecting their own lives, they were rippling out to everyone around them, setting the stage for consequences they couldn't yet see. The thrill of their affair blinded them to the danger that was closing in, and they continued on their reckless path, unaware that the walls were slowly closing in around them. As the affair between Marissa and Alex deepened, the weight of their secret began to take its toll. Alex felt the pressure building every day. He knew what they were doing could destroy their family if David ever found out. But Alex couldn't walk away. He was in too deep. Marissa had become more than an affair, she was an obsession. The fear of losing her only made him more reckless. One evening, as Marissa and Alex met at their usual hidden spot, they believed no one was watching. But Karen, Marissa's best friend, had been noticing the changes in her for weeks. Marissa's distracted behavior, the sneaky phone calls, and her growing distance from David didn't sit right with Karen. Determined to uncover the truth, Karen decided to follow Marissa. She parked her car a safe distance away and watched from the shadows. Her heart raced as she saw Marissa and Alex together. When they embraced, it confirmed everything Karen had feared. Her best friend was having an affair with her brother-in-law. Karen drove away, her mind spinning with questions. How could Marissa betray David like this? And what should she do about it? Karen struggled with her next move. Should she confront Marissa and give her the chance to come clean, or should she go straight to David and reveal the truth? The weight of what she had discovered was unbearable. She loved Marissa as a friend, but couldn't ignore the betrayal that was unraveling in front of her. Meanwhile, David's own suspicions were growing. Marissa had been acting strange for weeks. She was often distant, short-tempered, and secretive with her phone. David couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Instead of confronting her, he began watching her movements carefully. He was piecing together a puzzle, waiting for the moment when everything would make sense. Unaware that Karen and David were closing in, Marissa and Alex continued to see each other. The thrill of their affair blinded them to the danger surrounding them. Every stolen moment felt like an escape, but the lies they told to cover their tracks were starting to unravel. Karen couldn't stay silent any longer. She decided to confront Alex. Catching him alone one evening, she stepped into his path, her voice trembling but firm. "I know what you're doing, Alex. You need to end this now," she said, her eyes locked on his. Alex froze, his confidence replaced with fear. "Karen, you don't understand," he stammered, trying to sound calm. "It's not what you think." Karen wasn't having it. "I've seen you with her, Alex. Don't lie to me. If you don't stop this, I'll have to tell David. You're going to ruin everything." Panic gripped Alex as Karen's words sank in. She knew too much. If she told David, his life would be over. The affair, the lies, the fragile connection he had with Marissa, it would all come crashing down. Fear quickly turned into desperation, and his thoughts spiraled out of control. "You don't know what you're talking about," Alex said, his voice shaking, but Karen stood her ground. "Don't test me, Alex. This ends now," she warned. But Alex wasn't thinking clearly anymore. The fear of losing Marissa and the reality of Karen's threat clouded his judgment. As she walked away, he stood frozen, consumed by a growing sense of dread. Karen had become a problem he couldn't ignore, and in his panic, Alex began to consider a solution, one that would take him down a path he could never come back from. Late one quiet evening, Alex sat in his car, parked a few blocks from Karen's home. The street was eerily silent, with dim porch lights casting long shadows. Inside, Alex's mind was racing. He couldn't let Karen ruin everything. She knew too much. If she exposed his affair with Marissa, or worse, told the police, his life would be over. Driven by fear and desperation, Alex stepped out of the car and made his way toward her house. Karen was home alone, sitting in her living room with a warm lamp casting a soft glow. She was scrolling through her laptop, going over the evidence. She had found the emails, the texts, all the proof of Marissa and Alex's affair. She didn't hear Alex approaching, didn't notice the creak of the back door as he let himself in. When she finally looked up and saw him standing in the doorway, her face froze in shock. "Alex?" "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling.
"We need to talk," Alex said, his voice low and tense. "You don't understand what you're doing. You have to stop." Karen stood her ground, fear and determination battling on her face. "Stop. Alex, you've destroyed everything. Marissa, David, the kids, this has to end, and you know it."
Tension in the room thickened as Alex's desperation turned into anger. "You don't get it, do you? If you tell anyone, it'll ruin everything for all of us." Karen shook her head, stepping back. "You made this mess, Alex. I won't stay silent anymore." Her defiance pushed Alex over the edge. His anger boiled into a rage he couldn't control. In a sudden, violent burst, he lunged at Karen. She
Screamed and fought back, clawing at his arms, kicking, doing everything she could to break free.
But Alex was stronger, and his hands tightened around her throat. Her struggles weakened until finally she went still. Alex stepped back, staring at Karen's lifeless body on the floor. His chest heaved as reality sank in. He had killed her. The weight of what he'd done was crushing, but there was no time for remorse. He had to cover his tracks. In a cold, methodical panic, Alex staged the scene. He wiped his fingerprints from surfaces, rearranged the room to make it look like Karen's death had been a tragic accident. By the time he left the house, there was no sign that he had been there. The next morning, the news of Karen's sudden death spread like wildfire. The neighborhood was in shock. People described her as kind, loyal, someone who didn't deserve such a terrible end. Marissa was devastated, guilt-ridden over how distant she had been from Karen in the last weeks of her life. She cried at the funeral, her heart heavy with the lies she had told her friend. She never suspected that Alex was the one responsible, but Karen hadn't left the world without a fight. Before her death, she had backed up the damning emails and texts between Marissa and Alex onto a USB drive. The drive was later found by Karen's sister, who immediately turned it over to the police. The discovery turned Karen's death from a tragic accident into something far more sinister. As investigators pieced together the evidence, they saw the affair, the lies, and Alex's growing desperation. The truth was beginning to surface, and Alex's time was running out. The police were closing in on Alex, and he knew it. They had questioned Marissa earlier that day, showing her the evidence Karen had collected, the emails, the texts, everything. Marissa, overwhelmed with guilt and fear, broke down and confessed. She revealed the affair and admitted she suspected Alex had killed Karen to keep their secret safe. When Alex heard about her confession, he lost control. He couldn't believe Marissa had turned on him. He felt betrayed, and his anger boiled over into something dangerous. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Alex made his move. Marissa was alone at home, sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the mess her life had become. She hadn't eaten all day, her stomach tied in knots from the weight of what she'd told the police. When the loud, aggressive knock came at the door, her heart sank. She already knew who it was, opening the door. Marissa was met with Alex's enraged face. He stormed inside without waiting for an invitation, his eyes blazing with fury. "What did you tell them?" Alex demanded, his voice low and trembling with anger. Marissa took a step back, her hands shaking. "Alex, I had to. It's gone too
far. Karen is dead because of this, because of us." "You think you're innocent in all this?" Alex shouted, slamming his fist against the table.
"You dragged me into this, and now you're just going to hand me over?" "I didn't make you do this, Alex," Marissa said, her voice cracking. "You killed her. I didn't know you were capable of that." Alex's anger reached its peak. He grabbed a knife from the counter, pointing it at Marissa. You think the police are going to protect you? If I'm going down, you're coming with me." Marissa froze, her breath catching in her throat. Her mind raced, searching for a way
Out. Alex, please, you don't have to do this.
Just leave. Let it end here. But Alex was beyond reason. His grip on the knife tightened, and his eyes darted toward the windows. Flashing red and blue lights lit up the room, and the sound of tires screeching to a stop filled the air. "Drop the knife!" A police officer's voice boomed from outside. Alex turned toward the door, his breathing heavy. He could hear the footsteps of officers approaching the house. Desperation overtook him. He spun back toward Marissa, his expression wild. "Don't do this, Alex!" Marissa begged, tears streaming down her face. "Please!" But Alex's fear and fury consumed him. As the police burst through the door, Alex lunged toward them, the knife raised. The officers had no choice. Gunshots rang out, shattering the tense silence. Alex collapsed to the floor, the knife clattering from his hand. The life drained from his eyes as he lay motionless. Marissa dropped to her knees, sobbing as the police secured the scene around
her. It was over. The nightmare had come to an end, but at an unimaginable cost. Marissa's world was shattered, and the scars of that night would stay with her forever.
The nightmare had ended, but the damage it left behind would linger forever. David, overwhelmed by betrayal and grief, filed for divorce as soon as the dust settled. He couldn't look at Marissa the same way, knowing the affair and lies had shattered the life they had built together. He focused on what mattered most: his children, Emily and Jacob. Gaining full custody, he vowed to provide them with a stable home, free from the chaos of the past. Marissa, on the other hand, was left to face the weight of her choices. Her once perfect life was gone, replaced by an emptiness she couldn't escape. She moved to a quiet town far away, hoping to start fresh. But even in a new place, the memories followed her. The guilt, the betrayal, and the pain she caused haunted her every day. Marissa tried to rebuild, finding a modest job and pouring her energy into therapy, but she couldn't erase the scars her decisions had left behind. Karen's family grieved deeply for their loss. They found a small sense of comfort in knowing the truth had been uncovered and justice had been served. Karen had been the voice of reason, the one trying to protect everyone from disaster. Her courage cost her life, but her family vowed to honor her memory. For Alex, his end was as tragic as the choices that led him there. His desperation, fueled by jealousy and resentment, spiraled into violence and ultimately his death. His actions destroyed not only himself, but the lives of those around him, leaving behind a trail of sorrow and anger. David, heartbroken by his brother's betrayal, struggled to reconcile the man he once knew with the person who had caused so much pain. As time went on, Marissa tried to find her footing in her new life. She worked hard to regain the trust of her children, but their relationship was strained. They visited her occasionally, but the bond they once shared felt fragile, almost irreparable. She knew she couldn't undo the past, but she vowed to become a better mother, to at least try to give her children something stable in the future. Marissa's days were quiet, filled with reflection and regret. She thought often about the choices she had made, the stolen moments with Alex, the lies she told, and the pain she caused to everyone she loved. She realized that what had started as a spark of excitement and escape had turned into a fire that consumed everything in its path. Her life was now a reminder of how quickly things could spiral out of control. One decision, one mistake, had destroyed not only her own world, but the lives of so many others. She carried that weight with her every day, using it as a lesson, a constant reminder to never let her desires cloud her judgment again. In the end, there were no winners in this story. The perfect life Marissa once had was gone forever, replaced by regret and scars that time could never fully heal. But in the quiet moments of her new life, she hoped that one day she could make peace with her past and build something better for her children and herself. This tale is a haunting reminder of how betrayal and raw emotions can spiral into a devastating tragedy. Imagine being in Marissa's position. What would you have done differently? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to hit like, share it with others, and subscribe to Crime Lab Chronicle. Join us as we uncover more true crime stories that reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the
next one.